For my third general talk on heathen topics, I'm going to try to give a brief treatment of wyrd and the norns. The three norns are giantesses. In Völuspá it's said that they walked up to the gods one day. Their names are Urðr Verðandi Skuld, and they dwell at the well of Urðr, where they also care for the tree, Yggdrasil, one of whose roots comes down at that well. Urðr, the name of the first Norn and of the well, is cognate with the word wyrd, which is used in other Germanic languages to mean fate. But in the Scandinavian languages, in Old Norse, what the Norns determine or tease out is not wyrd, but orlög, what is laid down. And there are two mechanisms by which they do this. One, which suits that word most closely and is what we find in the Norse sources, is that the Norns sitting around the well ceaselessly stir and pick up and run through their fingers the white clay that lines the bottom of the well, and smear water on the trunk of the tree to tend it and to cure some of the damage caused by the deer that ceaselessly browse on its bark. And in so doing they stir up the waters, and as the water percolates up through the tree's roots and up the trunk and is transpired out through its leaves and falls as dew back into the well, by this mechanism a man's fate is determined and the fate of the world is determined. The other mechanism, alternatively, which we find in Anglo-Saxon sources, is that they are seated at a great loom on which they weave a pattern of fate. It's said that Frigg sees more of fate, or wyrd, than any of the other gods and goddesses. But even she cannot change the wyrd of her son Balder to be killed. Nor can she get him back from Hel's realm once he's in there, even though Hel would be willing to do it. Wyrd has spoken. As it says in Beowulf, wyrd goes as she will. Even the gods. Odin tries to forestall Ragnarok, but it seems the Ragnarok will come. The other two Norns are called Verðandi and Skuld. These names are probably later. Verðandi can be rendered as what is becoming, and Skuld as what shall be or must be, presumably on the analogy of past, present, and future. But the word Urðr itself, or the word wyrd, its cognate, is derived from a noun that originally meant to turn, the concept of the turning of fate, the turning of destiny, rather as in the medieval notion of the wheel of fortune, or perhaps as in the spindle as someone weaves. The word later comes to mean to become. To us moderns, as we read Germanic literature, it seems very fatalistic. Acceptance of what wyrd will be. But the attitude is actually a little more complex, especially when we shove aside the influence of the Christian notion that God has determined the fate for everything and that fortune is ultimately subordinate to his desires of destiny. In Beowulf, we also hear Beowulf himself say that wyrd favors the man, providing that his courage is sufficient. That's a freeing notion. Wyrd will go as she will, and therefore I have the right to exercise my courage, my honor, my determination, and do what I want to do. If I'm meant to succeed, I will succeed. If not, I will still have done what I wish to do. And that interplay between destiny and free will is a lot more complex than the notion that we have, for example, in the Hellenic faiths. We sit there paying out the thread and cutting it to determine a man's death. Do our norns actually determine consciously what happens in the world and what happens to an individual? It doesn't seem so. It passes through their hands. They are the mechanism by which it is determined that wyrd is wyrd. And at the Ragnarok, the norns will be powerless also.